this is the finished piece and this is how I made it. There was no absolute plan to start off with, but I knew I wanted some sort of resin base. So I did a resin pour in an ashtray mould, unfortunately, so there is the little holes in the side. I then sanded them down to make them nice and smooth. I poured a thin layer of resin onto some tinfoil to see what would happen. I'm going to use these to build it up. Got some resin fish from Green Stuff World. I painted them up and I glued them to the inside of my resin base. And then filled up the inside hollow with resin over the top of the fish. And then remembered that there's the holes from the ashtray mould, so I blocked those up with some blue tack and added a bit more resin. Once it was completely dry, I took the blue tack stoppers off the sides and began to think about how I could use these extra bits to build up some kind of scene on top. I'll use my miniature that I've painted to think about placement and positioning to try and get an idea of where I wanted these extra high bits to be. Once I was kind of happy, I glued the extra pieces in place. I was just using PVA, nothing special, because I wanted it to look frosty and like snow and ice anyway. I had two different types of snow basing material that I wanted to give a go, and some crackle paint, Winterfell Plains from Green Stuff World. So then I began to experiment. I mixed my traditional PVA and sand together. We sell this sand, it's awesome stuff, to make what I like to use as snow, and so that I could build some texture onto the top of the base, so that when I put my painted miniature on, it looked like, hopefully, he was stood on snow and ice. So I built up a layer of PVA glue and white sand that I'd mixed together with an old brush all across the top to give me the effect that I wanted. Once that was all dry and complete, and that hopefully it looked like the snow before the water, I used the crackle paint, the Winterfell Plains crackle paint that I'd never used before, to just give it, well, a bit more of a crackle, a bit more of a icy cold look, hopefully. So I blathered this all over the top with my old paintbrush. This dries clear, but with cracks, so it looks like ice. So that was the idea behind this. So I put that all over my PVA and sand snow mixture that is now dried, and I let this dry and crack. It's quite difficult to tell on the video the effect that the Winterfell gives, but it's completely clear but cracked like ice. I wanted it to stand out slightly more, so I used watered down blue paint. I used two different blues from Reaper Miniatures to try and highlight the cold and the cracks and just how wintry and chilly the top of this section of snow that my miniature was going to stand on really is. I then used the basing materials to add extra bits of snow effect to give it a bit more dimension still and continue to build up this scene of ice and cold. I used PVA glue and then I sprinkled the different basing materials across the PVA, and I moved it around to where I wanted it with my old paintbrush just to get it in the places that I wanted, and the PVA to help it stick. I then used the sealant. It is a spray, but I've had it a long time and it wouldn't come out, so I used a pipette to try and give extra stability, and this is what it looks like at the end. Here's my painted miniature. I positioned it and glued it down on top of my resin base full of my little fishes that I painted. I hope you like it. Please give me a like and a comment, and a subscribe would be awesome.